Hey loves, welcome to a new video here on the L&M channel. Today we're going to be going through some of my old daily logs. I posted a poll on Patreon. Free members have access as well, so if you want to be able to participate in some of those polls, go ahead and join. I will leave the link down below. It's always in the description. But I posted this poll asking from a selection of videos that I'm thinking of doing, which ones they wanted to see more. And so based off of the votes, there was 48 votes, and the one that got the most votes was what my daily log style looks like in different journals, in different spreads. So I have been daily logging in kind of a similar-ish way since 2023. And so I'm going to show you the different ways that it's kind of manifested itself, because I am someone who kind of likes to experiment in different journals and with different ways of daily logging. For me, daily logging is really a stream of consciousness practice. It's kind of just having a place for me to write things down that happened in the day. I have done it in different ways, and we'll kind of go through that. I have all of my journals here from my archives. So I have, let's see, this is the insert that I used in 2023. And then this is technically, so this is 2023, this is 2024. And then I have, of course, my Hobonichi Cousin, and my Take a Note, which I'll show you in a second, but they are kind of separate because if not, they would occupy a little weird space in my desk. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with 2023. And in 2023, it's when I first started this kind of like journey. That's a little bit too zoomed in. There we go. And make sure Luffy's still in frame. So in 2023, August of 2023 is when I started kind of to get back into this sort of journaling practice in a consistent way. I bought my first kind of like journal since coming back into this realm in August of 2023. It was a Hobonichi Weeks. It's what ended up being my it's what ended up being my media journal, which I do have a flip through here on the channel. And so that's really the only thing I was using for journaling at the time, was just media logging. And I did feel like I wanted a space to kind of record some of the other things that were going on in my life. One thing about me is that I live a pretty mundane life, according to others. I don't really mind it. I'm not upset about it, but I don't really go out very often. I live very much in my house, which is why media logging is so important to me. And so I didn't really feel a need to have anything super elaborate, but I still wanted to be able to record some of those things. And so I used this insert. It was a blank vertical weekly insert, and I started doing tracking my weather for each month, because I love weather tracking. It's one of my favorite things. And so I got this blank vertical weekly, and you can see here it was week 40 of the year, almost at the end of the year. And I decided that I would do it each week would have two spreads. So I would have a kind of like daily logging spread, and then I would have a kind of like visual, photo heavy spread. And so yeah, this is the first week of October, you can see here. And so each week had 2-week spreads, right? Does that make sense? And the second spread for that same week would just kind of be a more visual heavy. This is very similar to what now is happening, or I guess this would be like an ancestor of what my journal is. This is kind of like the picture. I've always wanted to have just a space for images. I don't need a lot of space, but kind of just having a space for that. And so this was what my daily logging looked like. It was in this vertical weekly. I would kind of just write down what happened in the day. This is not 100% what I do right now, but this is something that I go back to time and time again. It's part of my practice. As I do daily logging right now, I didn't really do that in the beginning of 2023, or rather in 2023. This is really what I was doing, was kind of like, it was stream of consciousness. Whenever I wanted to write something down for the day, I would come in and put it in here, but it was a little bit more condensed, and a little bit more, yeah, just simple. I mean, I didn't have many journals this year. I only had 2 journals. And so this is what that ended up manifesting. I don't really like this spread, but that's fine. That's kind of like what it ended up manifesting as, right? So you had the 2 weeks. I love this spread for Snow of the Season. I did put some like lyrics, and yeah, I was kind of in here for a little bit. As you can see, the picture heavy spreads I fell off of. And this week I had a migraine, and I remember quite, and that's what I really love about daily logging specifically, is that even though I wasn't in here, right? Because I had the space for it, I remember I was feeling really poorly this week. I don't remember much else about it, but I do remember that I wasn't feeling well. So you have different quotes here, different lyrics. And so yeah, this was kind of like what I was doing in the vertical TN. This was one way that I was doing my daily logging. It's very simple, just kind of like little, whenever I wanted to write something, I would write it in. And it, because the space is small, I just automatically made it so that I was condensing a bit more in terms of what I wanted to write and categorize, which is not a bad thing. It was very, I guess, low effort in that sense. This is very low effort. It is still one of my favorite types of journaling. I love the vertical weekly, but it is one that I kind of go in and out of quite frequently. I'm kind of out of the vertical weekly right now. I'm trying to use the Hobonichi Cousin for it, and it's not being 100% successful, but that's okay. So this was like the first iteration of what my daily logging kind of like looked like. Then we go into 2024. And in 2024, I decided, as I usually do at the beginning of the year, I've noticed this about myself, that I wanted an all-in-one book. So I went from having the Hobonichi Weeks and the Hobonichi, or rather the Hobonichi Weeks and the TN. And then I was like, you know what? I want to put the media log, and I want to put the daily logging, and I want to put all of that together. And I remember watching this one creator, and she had a really cool system that I wanted to replicate. And so I did that. I did that in the PaperTess B6. And obviously, you can see that this is very, very tiny, and that is because I ripped out the pages that I used in the PaperTess B6 and just put it in here. I've been tucking it in with my other inserts. I did fall off of the PaperTess B6 for a couple reasons, and I'll talk about that now. But when I first started, this is what I was doing. This is what ended up being kind of like my daily logging system. So I experimented with a few different, you can kind of see here the vertical weekly, experimented with that. And here instead, that did not end up keeping to. I also experimented with having kind of like drawing in the horizontal weekly to be able to replicate what it looked like in the, in the Hobonichi Weeks. I did not keep to that though. What I ended up doing quite a lot of was kind of like this style spread. So reminiscent of that creator, which I don't remember their name right now, but I will link them down below. So do check that out if you're interested. They would do this kind of like delineating line and then have the days on the side. They did do planning and other things. So this is kind of my take on that. So what I ended up doing was creating this delineating line, and I'd had a sidebar, and in the sidebar, I would put down my media log for the week. And then I'd have just my daily logging, right? Like whenever I wanted to write, I would put stuff in here. This was basically more of, this is what I did, right? Like this is what happened. I decided I would ditch the previous layout. I watched Adventure Time. I finally hit send on the Substack newsletter. Helped Grandpa finish up the setup for the snowblower machine. And so that's what it ended up looking like. I really do love the PaperTess B6 layout. What I was struggling with was that I wanted to have my media log in one place else, and then also the thickness of the book, which I guess nowadays wouldn't bother me so much now that I am doing something with like, I'm punching holes in them. But at the time it was a big deal, and it ended up making so that I left the PaperTess B6. But this kind of like experiment in here, and this way that I was doing really did inform how I've been doing my daily logging ever since. So that's why I'm never against experimenting with different styles or replicating other people. Sometimes people get a little bit pressed about, whether they should be copying others. I think that you should, if you're inspired by someone, then you should try and kind of like replicate it in your way, right? Like this is very much inspired by that one creator, but it is also my own kind of like take on it. And if I didn't like it, then I would just move on and use whatever I did like from this in another way. And that's exactly what I ended up doing. I really love the PaperTess B6 layout. The fact that it has, the horizontal weekly over here. It has a column that I could put all of my trackers on. I really loved that. And the fact that it's a daily page, but they're undated. I really love everything about the PaperTess B6, honestly, quite a lot, except for the fact that it's so thick. If it came in half years, I feel like that would be like the perfect thing for me, because I really did enjoy it. And also recognizing in myself that I do need something kind of like the Hobonichi Weeks, or kind of like a different a separate log for the media log because I do really enjoy having that separately. I like seeing it in a more condensed form. But that's basically what my daily log was. I would put like in this sidebar little mini excerpts from the day, TLDRs, just some more reminiscent of like what I would do in the vertical weekly. And then here in the bigger space was a area for me to write a bit more and just no rules really. This was a very writing heavy layout, and what I remember missing also was the fact that I didn't really have a space to print images, right? Like talking about how in the 2023 one I had 1 week image, 1 week writing. That's something that I've noticed about myself, is that while I prefer the writing practice when it comes to journaling, I still do need a place where I can kind of print out images. Even though printing is the bane of my existence, I do like having a space for images. And so that was another thing that I was struggling with the PaperTess B6. Because it was already such a big book, I didn't like the idea of printing images and making it even bulkier. And so I was finding myself to be a little bit too constrained in that. These spreads that are going to come up, I ended up cannibalizing, and a lot of the stickers and stuff that I had printed I removed. So like here there was stickers and I removed them, and when I moved into the TN I transferred them into there. So they're a little weird, but this was what I was doing. You see that they're like sticking. I would have quotes on the side and then just general things. And when it comes to daily logging for me, it's very much stream of consciousness. It's just whatever I want to commemorate or write about. If it's in my head, then I write it down. This was one of my favorite spreads back when it was actually like had everything in it. I was doing the weather on this side. I had the stickers, my trackers, and then I did a media log overview. I really enjoyed this style as well. And then, yeah, just kept doing that. And that's what the PaperTess B6, I was in here until I want to say February. Yeah, I dropped off at the like mid-February and came into the TN. So this is where the TN comes in. And I did all my backlogging, and the backlogging was amazing because, and Lindsay Scribbles talked about this recently in one of their videos, and I resonated a lot with it. It's the way that I backlog is different from the way that I log daily. And so it was really nice to have this backlog because I knew exactly where my spreads were going to go. And so, or how my spreads, I wanted them to look. And so I was able to kind of print out images and design them that way. And you can kind of see here the reminiscent. I was kind of just replicating exactly what I had in the PaperTess B6, but in this format. And so that's another thing, right? Like if you like a certain way of journaling, there's no reason why you can't replicate that in different layouts, just to see what it is that you prefer. Because obviously writing in a longer format is different than writing in a wider format. And so experimenting with that as well is really, really fun. But what I found really quickly on was that, again, the backlogging was different. And so I was struggling with printing out images. Once again, images always being the bane of my existence. I love how this spread came out so much. You can see here, I haven't printed out the images for that, and that's absolutely fine. I'm not going to go back and do that, but experimenting with different ways. Again, I ended up, because I wasn't constraining myself to just one page, and because these inserts can go on forever, you can kind of see that, I found myself writing more. So you can see there's lots, big chunks of space. And then another thing that I found myself, and this is, I think, true of me whenever I'm in a traveler's notebook, I end up being scrappier. And so I ended up sticking in things a lot more often. In the beginning of my journals, I would put in like any of like ephemera or stickers that came in from Patreon rewards and such. I did that for all of these inserts. And it just ends up being a little bit more junk journaling. Not 100% junk journal, but a little bit more junk journal-y, if you will. I love this spread. And just a bit more scrappy. I was doing 2 lines so that I wouldn't kind of like miss where I wanted to have the delineating symbols. And because this is a blank insert as well, that's kind of like what I ended up doing. I inserted some random things. This is when we adopted Gus. I love this May spread so much. This cover, so good. This is a Greta Lusky image sticker from a Kickstarter that I supported her on. And so, yeah, it's very reminiscent of that. At some point, let's see here. Did I do it here? Yeah, so at the end, I would try doing day per page inspired by Maddie. And I don't think I'm really good with day per pages. I don't like the constraint. When it comes to daily logging, because it is so stream of consciousness, I want to have the space to be able to write as much or as little as I would like to. And that's something that I will also talk about when I get to the tan. And so I don't do as well with the constraint of a day per page because there's some days where I don't write anything, as you can see here and here. And then there's some days that I write too much and I run out of space. Like here, there's 2 columns. And so that's something that when it comes to the TN specifically, this is another way that I did it, but I don't necessarily enjoy it as much. I find it a little bit too constraining and a little bit too stressful. So I don't really like the day per page setup in the TN system. When it comes to this one, this third TN, I actually did a few different layouts in here. I tried doing 2 columns, which I really like how it looks. It's like a block of writing. So you can see here, I did kind of like 4 columns. I split each page in 2, and this is 3 pages ish. So this is one day, and this is another day, and then Wednesday keeps on going. And I really like how that looks. And again, I'm still writing the same stuff, right? Like just random things that happen in the day. I started doing some time stamping up here at the when I like first checked into the book. That was inspired by Elle over at the Common Corner. And I did like that, but I don't think I ended up keeping up with it, at least in this time. Also, I love the feeling of the paper on here. I think I was using ballpoint in this one. Here I went back to the delineating line instead. I think that for the TN, I prefer when the delineating line is in something more similar to a PaperTess where it's wider. I think it's too narrow in the TN. Although I say that and I still really like how these look. Let's see here. You can see here another one of those double columns. I kind of went back and forth on that. And you can notice that I'm very scrappy in these, which I really enjoy. I really like the fact that they feel very, I guess, colorful, but then also just creative. I feel a little bit more creative when it comes to the TN system. I don't know if anyone else experiences that. This week I really, really I experimented with making the delineating lines dark. Normally I either have them be in like pencil or very light ballpoint pen. And in this week, I decided to make them very, very dark and to delineate the actual days as well. And I really like how that ended up looking like. And then let's see, I did that here as well. I wanted to, I even like put in, pen pal stuff. And yeah, I just love how scrappy the TNs feel to me. It's like I don't really have this kind of like inner sensor to limit myself on the things that I put in, especially I guess because it's inserts and you know that you're going to finish them pretty early on. Towards the end of this journal, I ended up doing day per page. And I actually really like, kind of opposite of what happened in this second insert. I really enjoyed how I went about them in this one. I don't know what it is about these spreads that I enjoy more, but at this point, I started time stamping, again, a riff off of what I saw Elle do. So Elle timestamps, and I don't really know if she timestamps all around, but I do know for sure that she clocks into her journals. And while that felt good, I felt like something was missing for me. And for me, it was, I want to timestamp every single time I go into the journal. I really like the concept of time. I really like being aware of that. And so I started doing that here, and that's something that has influenced me all the way to how I journal right now. Every single time I do a log in my daily log, I do timestamp it. And so this is one of my favorite spreads from like the whole year. Something about the spacing. Here I did the delineating line, and what I ended up doing was a captain's log. I ended up doing like the times and the things that I did. I did that here as well, and I really like that. Again, reminiscent of the vertical weekly. I really go back and forth on this kind of like vertical weekly style. There are times where I'm really into it and times where I kind of drop off. And you can see here all of the time stamping. I kind of really like seeing the times that I decided I was gonna, log in here. This is at 4:09. This is at 9:10. 4, 12. I don't know. I really enjoy that. And these final spreads in here are some of my favorites from the year. I really enjoy that, which is different again from what I mentioned earlier of not liking the day per page situation. I really love this spread too. I haven't looked at these in a long time. And I really like looking at my spreads because you inspire yourself, right? And you can kind of see here, I added some things in. What did I don't know why I censored that, but anyways, and again, what I ended up doing here, which is pretty cool, is I glued in one of the Sterling Inks kind of like stickers. They have a sticker roll when it comes to like this time stamping situation, and so I was really into this vertical style. What was I writing? I think I was using the Muji pen, the Muji Fine pen. I really like how that looks. I'm surprised myself. Very inspired by myself with these. And so even though I literally just said that I don't like the day per page, obviously it was going really well these couple of last days. And there was moments where I didn't really, oh, this was when Julie came. My sister surprised my family and came over for a trip. And this was the last day in the journal. And so that's when I ended the kind of like T ends, I didn't have another insert to use. And I still had this Hobonichi Weeks that I didn't really have anything to do with. And so what I decided was that instead of going into another TN, I would try daily logging in the Hobonichi Weeks. And so now we move into the Hobonichi Weeks of it all. And so in here, I still have a lot of things I have to stick in. I ended up having kind of like a combination of things with the daily log. I was trying out kind of like having like a major highlight for the day, and then I had the weather here, my little tracker for media that I love. And this was not 100% successful, but it was an interesting experiment. You can see here I kind of switched it up a bit. I put the weather over here, my media dots, and then just little blurbs. And I really like how this spread looks. This is like more writing. And then I highlighted the media that I was consuming over here on the sidebar, which was also really nice. Weather back over here and just some general highlights. All the while I am daily logging in the back. I'll show you in a second. But this wasn't wholly successful. And then I ended up getting surgery around, let's see, this was the week upcoming. This was the week before my surgery, and I was really stressed out, and so there was barely any journaling done. And this is the week that I got my surgery, and so after that I didn't really do much in here at all because I was in recovery mode. But then in the back you can kind of see the daily log, and talking again about how the way that you journal can be the same, but it is affected by the format in which you are in. Obviously this is a little, it's more slim than the PaperTess B6. It's definitely slimmer than a TN. And so that changes the way that spreads end up looking like. And so, again, here I am still time stamping. I did kind of like the first page of the month in the same way that I was doing in the TN. And just, there was not really a lot of space for the sidebar. And so I didn't really keep it. I kind of used the invisible line for the weeks to kind of create the delineating line and just have some spacing. So like, for example, TLDR, journal musings. And the reason why I really like, the reason why I really enjoy having the delineating line and kind of having these small little blurbs is because stream of consciousness daily logging for me is very much a practice for myself in the present. And while this is something that I might read later on, I don't really tend to read my daily logs later when I'm going through. For me, the visual aspect is what I really enjoy and what I use as visual cues. Like as I was showing you these, I didn't read almost any of it. I was just looking at the pictures and the stickers and the deco and kind of the things that I stuck in. And that was what I was using to trigger my memory. The daily logging itself is just for me in the moment, really, kind of to be able to get things out of my brain. I don't know if you've ever heard about this, and I don't know what the exact study is, but I hear a lot about how people who have ADHD or they struggle to concentrate, it's good for them to have a kind of like notebook on the side for whenever something comes into their head, they can just write it down. And that way it's kind of like on paper. They don't have to stress out about possibly forgetting it because they've already written it down, and then they can concentrate on whatever they have in front of them. And I think that daily logging for me is similar to that, in that If I'm going through something right now and I want to write it down, I use my daily log to do that. And that way it's in my book and I can keep on going on with whatever I go on with. And what ends up happening because of that is that I end up with a lot of writing that I don't necessarily want to go back to. And what I struggle with and what I still haven't found the perfect balance for is daily logging for that practice versus kind of like memory keeping. And I think that the sidebar is where that really shines because I can use the sidebar to highlight certain things. And I guess that's also what I was trying to use the weekly portion for, and I was unsuccessful with it. Um, but having kind of like highlights for what happened in the day as more of a memory keeping practice than just a mm, stream of consciousness practice. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's something that I'm still playing around with and trying to figure out what I prefer to do. Um, and I haven't quite figured that out yet. But as you can see, these are different ways. It's very similar to what I've been doing. There's lots of stickers. I did quite enjoy doing daily logging in here. I was surprised. I didn't think I would just because it's a smaller setup, but it was nice. I did not have any issue with it. I do think that this was probably just a temporary thing because again, the weeks has very little pages. I don't think I would be able to stay in the daily log for very long. I would use it up fairly quickly because again, I don't like having the constraints of thinking, I'm running out of pages. And I could always get one of like the Sterling ink notebooks to kind of like stack with it and do that. That's something that I considered as well if I wanted to keep on with the Hobonichi Weeks, but I didn't end up doing that. Instead, I decided that I was going to use, what is it that I decided to use? Oh, and yeah, in 2024, at the end, what I decided that I was going to do for 2025 was once again, at the beginning of the year, wanting to have everything in one book. And so what I decided I was going to do was go back to the TN system. And you're like, why are you saying that you're going back to the TN system and you're um bringing out your rings? That's because I cut up the TN that I was using and put it in my rings. So let me show you that really quickly. Let me just kind of move this over. So it's interesting, right? Because I went from having just 2 journals to all the journals that I currently use, and it's fun. I don't regret that at all. Okay, so I decided that I wanted to use a TN again at the beginning of the year and do everything in there. Media log, photos, you name it. Everything that I was doing, just have it all in one book. And of course, that did not end up working for me long term. You can see here, this is the, the journal. I did cut it up. I kept the cover because I have things that I enjoy. And so I did this currently page, which was right in the beginning. And then let me go in between image. Do I have them in here? Or would they be? I think they're going to be in the archive actually, because it's the beginning of the year. Yep. Hold on. So there's that. And then let me get the archive. Okay. So January, this was in the TN. And I'll get to the TN in a second. I'm sorry, the tan. Where are you? You would be here. Yeah. So this is the January page, and I was kind of doing this big, bold, and again, still time stamping. So it looks a little bit different, but the premise is still the same. I'm adding my quotes in here. More quotes, I'm trying to be, I just naturally become a little bit more scrappy when it comes to the TN system. But I was not enjoying it as much for some reason. I don't know why. I think that even though I said earlier that it might be that the delineating line is a bit too narrow, I think that it works for the most part. And I think that it's just one of those things here. I did try doing the delineating line, as you can see. Just one of those things that for me, because I like experimenting so much with different layouts, I was just not being called to the TN at the time. And I don't think that's a problem. I just think that it just wasn't working for me at the time. I'll go here. And it's a little sparse. I was trying to be a little bit different with the layouts and it just wasn't working. So I ended up moving out of the TN system, and I believe, what did I move into? Did I move into the tan right away? I don't think I moved into the tan right away. What was I using for daily logging at the time? I can't remember for the life of me what I was using to daily log when I moved out of... Oh! Was I using the vertical weekly? Hold on. I'm missing one. Give me a second. I think I ended up just using the vertical weekly. Okay, that might be what it was. So I ended up, again, going back to the vertical weekly. And I love the stickers. Just sporadically writing things that happen in the day. But this also, even though I love this is kind of like what I mean by having like little TLDRs for the day, if you will, to see like the highlights. I really love. I'm so sad. I always fall off of the vertical weekly, even though it's one of my favorites. But I guess I wasn't doing anything with like the daily logging, which is weird. I can't remember. Yeah, I guess I wasn't because I don't have anything else. Okay, so I guess that for a period of time I wasn't doing much daily logging, if you will. But then I ended up starting daily logging in the tan because so I had originally gotten the tan, the Take a Note A5 for planning, and that wasn't working out. And then I used it for a bit to kind of like do some media journaling as a media log companion, and that didn't work out. And then I tried doing some other things in it, and that didn't work out. And so I don't remember what I was using to daily log. I don't think I had anything to daily log because I can't. I mean, what other journal did I have? I don't think so. And so I ended up moving my daily logging to the tan. And that was the best decision I could have ever made because I love it. I love daily logging in here quite a lot, even though lately I have been wanting to switch things up, but that's just the name of the game for me. And as you can see, once again, I was doing my little time stamping. And for the most part, I was just using the one day to start with. And I've had been doing that for the past almost half a year. Just the one day, which is also very surprising considering the fact that, again, I don't really like the constraint of the 1 day per page. And we're looking at just a column. So much smaller. And even though that was the case, I don't think I ever ended up feeling like I had too little space. I pretty much, used the day as it came. And even though I was kind of struggling a bit with this kind of like column, and I'm still not 100% sure what I'm doing with it, I quite liked doing my daily logging in here. And so you can kind of see that all of a sudden there's a shift, and I will explain to you what that shift is when I get to this spread because I love it. I was watching a video by another creator whose name is evading me right now, but I will leave them linked down below. And they did kind of like a check-in in one of their journals. I believe it was the Hobonichi Cousin. And I really liked that idea. And so what I ended up doing was creating this kind of delineating line and adding that information up top and then using the bottom for daily logging. And so if you remember, I like tracking the weather, and we've seen different ways that I've done that, right? So I have the weather kind of like in here in the weeks, and then I have the weather here in the PaperTess B6 right there. And then when we looked at the vertical weekly right in 2023, I had the weather right up front, right? So I like tracking the weather, and those are different ways that I've done that. And so, of course, I found a way to track the weather in here. That's what I ended up doing. And yeah, some space for some trackers. I tried doing my media log in here as well for a little bit because I was struggling with the Hobonichi Weeks, and I don't dislike that. And you can kind of see here a little, a little tiny vertical weekly because, again, I really enjoy kind of the captain's log, kind of like writing the time. Time is important to me. And kind of seeing how I spend my days. I feel like this kind of thing is more what I would like when it comes to memory keeping, and then this is more stream of consciousness. And so I still haven't found 100% a way to kind of marry those two things, but alas, we continue trying. And in the meantime, all of this is still informing different ways for me to journal, and I really like this spread a lot as well. What's different about these spreads as well in comparison to the other ones is that I've been using fountain pens. I historically didn't have any fountain pens, didn't use any fountain pens. I was just primarily using either a ballpoint or the Sarasa gel pens. But here I've been using my fountain pens and kind of figuring out different ways of doing that, whether it's one color per week or one color per spread or one color per day, as you can see. Where is it? Here. So one color a day. And then going back to what I mentioned before about wanting kind of like the vertical weekly, here you can see I was doing my regular stream of consciousness, and then the vertical timeline. And this was very much inspired by watching different Japanese creators, that again reminded me just how much I love that kind of like vertical timeline situation. And that's what I got in this one. So I have to move you into the actual current journal. So that's what the daily logging had been looking like. But then most recently, inspired by myself, again, because you can inspire yourself in the same way that other people can inspire you, I decided to shift things up a bit, especially because I got my 5-year journal. And so some of this information that I was kind of keeping up here on top, I'm doing that in the 5-year now. I decided, let's use another one where... Let's use this one because this is one of my favorite spreads, if not my favorite. I decided that I would kind of make this more similar to what I was doing in the TN, right? Where I had just a header for the day, and then I would write down whatever I needed to write down for the day, and then I would go into the next one, and so on and so forth. And so instead of using the columns for each specific day, what I've been using is just the columns as a space for me to write, and then it keeps going. So you can kind of see here, this is Monday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so on and so forth. And I don't end up usually using this end of the page because I'm not very active in my daily log over the weekend. And that's been going very, very well. I've been doing this in this month. And then this little section here is for the first song, which is something that I've been trying to figure out how to add to my spreads. And this is the current weeks as I'm recording it. This is what it looks like. I, again, tried different things, right? So I tried doing one color per spread, right? And then I tried doing one color for the week. And then I tried doing one color for the day. And yeah, I'm just always experimenting. I don't really care for kind of limiting myself when it comes to experimenting. Even in my own systems, I just like going and trying different things, because you never know when one thing is going to open your brain, right? And say, okay, this is it, right? Like when it came to copying or being inspired by L with the clocking in the beginning of the day, or whenever it is that I ended up going into my journal, that informed how I do the time stamping now. And I love it. I love time stamping. It's one of my favorite parts. It's something that I don't think I'm ever going to stop doing whenever I even if I shift things around with daily logging. I love the concept of time stamping whenever I go into journal. So that is something that I'm really, really enjoying. So don't be afraid. I guess the point of this video for me was to share with you that you should not be afraid of experimenting with your systems, or experimenting with different journals, right? Let's say that you have a system that you really, really enjoy. Don't be afraid to kind of like try it out in different formats, because it can change the way that you approach that type of journaling style. And it can inform a new way of journaling that you didn't realize you liked, right? And so I guess that's what I wanted to share, is this way of journaling, and how important it's been for me the past couple of years. I definitely want to write a bit more about what I've learned after having a consistent journaling practice for these like 2.5, almost 3 years. Specifically when it comes to the daily logging, I think that it's one of my most important practices. I do think that it helps me quite a lot. It is the thing that I'm most consistent in when it comes to journaling, just because it's very, again, simple. I just need to write things in it. Obviously, I decorate it because I do think things need to be pretty for me to want to use them. And lately I've been finding, even though I've been enjoying this kind of setup, lately I've been finding a desire to kind of shift things around. And I've been missing my TNs. So I don't know. We'll see what that ends up looking like. We might end up with a couple of different ways for daily logging by the end of the year. But so far, those are the things I wanted to share, just different ways. Hopefully you can get inspired by 1 or 2 or 3 or all of them. Let me know if you have a practice that has kind of shifted around in a similar way, where you've tried it out in different journals, and if you have a favorite way of doing it. I think that this kind of like header and then spacing is one of my favorite ways of doing daily logging. And of course, the vertical weekly is something that I keep coming back to time and time again. You can kind of see, I'll show you since we're already here in the Hobonichi Cousin. Let's see here. this is one of my favorite spreads in the whole journal, and it's again that kind of like captain's log, kind of like vertical weekly. Um, it's one of my favorite ways of documenting. This was more media journal oriented, but I do really love kind of like the vertical weekly, and it's one of those spreads that I keep trying to make work for me, and I haven't 100% cracked the code. That's okay because journaling is a journey. It's not a destination. Every single spread that you make is just another type of thing for you to look back on and reminisce on and be nostalgic about and enjoy and see what your journey looked like. Like seeing how my journey went from this vertical TN back in 2023 to what it is now. I can see the way that that the journey has informed the way that I do it now, and the way that I do it now will continue to inform the journey until I stop journaling, which I never foresee happening, right? But I hope that that was inspiring, that you got some tips. If you've made it this far, go ahead and leave an emoji that represents what's going on in the weather for you right now. I was gonna say originally leave like a flower or a summer emoji, but of course there's some of you in the Southern Hemisphere, so you're going through winter right now. So go ahead and leave an emoji representative of your current weather status. And if you are interested in watching what my journal ecosystem looks like right now through the Mid-Year Techo Kaigi, I will leave that linked right here. Thanks again so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.